Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Redtime Stories. I'm Tamara McKay, founder and host of Redtime Stories, and we're here to share stories and talk about things that have to do with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness while protecting our First Amendment rights. We have a lot of great things, as I always tell you, planned for this show. And remember when I said we would have stories from Hawaii to Florida? Well, today we definitely have that. Today, we begin with hearing from Dennis O'Shea, who relocated from Maui to Florida a few months ago and is very knowledgeable in things that are going on in the world and asks the right questions. And I wanted him to come on today to help you start asking the right questions. He's got some great insights and looking forward to hearing from him. And then we'll hear later from Jodi Beaty, who is running for Hawaii Republican treasurer seat in the runoff race. Street talking is also coming, as I promised, in the Red Zone, and we are going to be having the Red Time Stories for Children coming as well. So please stay tuned for that. We're looking forward to having people go out into the Red Zone from all over and hearing stories, hearing concerns, hearing questions, and addressing those questions that people have all over to ask. You wouldn't believe how much we have in common and how many fears we share alike. So if you have any comments, content, or questions, please send them to me at writeasred@pm.me. writeasred@pm.me. We're gonna keep talking story with real people and putting some rumors to rest. So without further ado, let's get started with our first guest after a quick clip with Dennis O'Shea, a great patriot who is a retired firefighter, a veteran, prior resident of Hawaii here on Maui. And we could have used him and his knowledge and talents in the county seat that he ran for. And I have to say, knowing Dennis, whoever can get him in a seat to represent the people, you'll be very fortunate to have him in office. So let's see a real quick clip of Dennis.
Move slow.
All right. Thanks for that quick clip. Hey, Dennis, welcome. How's it going there? Let's get you to unmuted there and
there we go.
There we go. How's it going?
Introduce
yourself and give some a little bit of intro about you.
I'm Dennis O'Shea. Like you said, I always have too much to say. I'm a retired fire captain, and I also retired from the Navy as well. Fire department, I did 28 years as a paramedic and a captain. And then in the Navy, I was also a medic, but they called it 8427 Corpsman. So it was a lot of emergency medicine, but also a lot of clinical. It would be like if you took a physician's assistant and a paramedic and mixed it together. So I have a lot of background in medicine, emergency medicine, and clinical medicine as well. So that's me in a nutshell. Moved from Maui to Florida in November, and here I am.
I know that you've been sharing quite a bit on Instagram, so I want to make sure that people get that information to follow you later, because I think it's really important when you're coming from a blue state, and I know you mentioned you lived in California as well, and the differences, and I think people don't really see that there is hope when you're especially a Republican living in a blue state. So I was wondering if you could share some of those differences and maybe some ideas for people of hope and what they can do. But first, what's the difference that you found mostly from Hawaii to Florida?
Well, first, I did grow up both in Hawaii and California back and forth with my parents, and then lived in Maui a lot as a young man, and worked for the county as a lifeguard through, late 80s, early 90s, and then got hired as a firefighter in California, about 50 miles north of Los Angeles. And spending both time, a bunch of times, both in blue states my entire life, basically, and only traveling with the military to other states. I can honestly say that they have changed over the years. When I hear people say liberals, it's funny to me because my parents and my grandparents, well, my grandparents in particular, were immigrants from Ireland, and they were union workers, and they were liberal. They were the Democrat working person, and that doesn't exist much anymore. I don't call them liberal anymore. I call them leftists. And when I was in Hawaii, specifically this last time, 2020, 2019, 2020, 2021, part of 2022, to the end of 2022, I noticed a huge difference that had changed from 1980s through the 90s. And then we would spend a couple months every year there from the 90s till we moved back in 2020. And I want to say the biggest difference I've noticed since I've come to Florida is it's just, aside from my mental health improving, it's just you just get to live your life. Nobody's telling you what to do. You know, I was really blown away in Maui in particular, how much control there was over your daily life, especially, you know, I don't want to get into a big COVID conversation, but the whole COVID thing, the way they handled it in Hawaii and California for that matter, was insane. I mean, that's why I left the fire department a year and a half earlier than I was going to, because I saw the madness that was starting in my heart and my soul and my brain. I knew that what they were doing was wrong. And I stood up, and they didn't like it, you know, so I just decided to step out and went to Hawaii. And then I was blown away that Hawaii was even worse. And then to see, I think, being in Florida, it's wild because the people here, for one, are super nice. Everybody's really nice. And it's funny for me to talk to my friends that are liberal in California and Hawaii. And they said, I can't believe you moved there. You know, that the governor, he's Nazi. They're completely, you know, railing on the LGBTQ community, which is hilarious to me because I live just a little bit north of Miami, and there's a huge LGBTQ, whatever they want to call them, the alphabet people communities now, and everybody's happy and everybody's nice. There's no issue, you know. And then I just saw that the NAACP guy, he put out a travel warning for African Americans to not come to Florida, which is hilarious because the next town over from me, Fort Pierce, is predominantly African American, and the leader of the NAACP who put out the warning, he lives in Tampa.
Oh, really?
So I'm like, are you leaving Florida, bro? Is it that bad? So everybody in California and Florida, or in Hawaii, that are getting news about Florida, it's bullshit. Excuse my language.
The fake news, right?
It's complete bullshit. Like it's funny. So like you were saying, you know, any kind of insight I could give people to get more involved. Listen, don't believe anything that you hear about any person or anything or any situation. Go and find out for yourself. Go talk to those people. You know, when I ran for that seat in Maui, I'm not a politician. I had no desire whatsoever. You were there the night I decided. Right. I saw the two other candidates and their speeches, and they were not doing what they were doing for the people of Maui. They
still aren't.
They had personal agendas to max. And I was like, well, I'm retired. I want to live here till I die. I want my grandkids to grow up here. There's too much at stake. I'm going to put my hat in the ring. And I did. And I'll tell you that 7 months of running, I learned so much because I got out and I talked to the actual people. Right. You know, because everywhere you'd go to speak, you've done it. People would ask you, well, what about homelessness? Yeah. What about the housing crisis? What about this? What about that? And I didn't want to give them a canned answer. And if I didn't know, I'd say, you know, I'm not really aware of that right now, but I'm going to find out. And I would go and I would find out, you know, and sitting in on those county council meetings and testifying about certain things there that I would teach myself about. That's another thing you need to do. People, if they want to get involved, go down to those county council meetings and make sure that those people there understand who they work for, and call them out on their shit. Because I'll tell you, by the end of the campaign, there was a couple of them that really liked me, and most of them hated me. And it was because I was calling them on their crap. I mean, Kelly King, who's supposed to be this big environmentalist, you know, the biggest thing that I caught her on was this whole ordinance she wanted to pass for everybody having to change their lights on the coast. She was saying that the coastal birds were getting disoriented and dying. Right. And she had a guy who was an expert there. And it was awesome to sit there and watch because I think it was Yuki Lee asked the guy, the expert, so what business are you in? And he didn't want to answer. And he said, well, I manufacture the lights.
Yeah.
And he's a friend of Kelly King's. And I'm like, right there, I was like, oh, so if she gets this ordinance passed, she's going to make millions because, you know, she's invested in that. And then I brought up the thing with like, well, hey, maybe if we did an autopsy on these birds, because you can't find out for sure if the
Right.
birds died from being disoriented, but maybe they have glyphosates in them, like all the bees dying on Maui because they spray the crap out of the center island.
Right.
Mahi
It
Pono
couldn't be anything related to Monsanto or
yeah, bear,
anything else being
Mahi
sprayed. Of course
Pono.
not. Right.
Yeah, I mean, and then I brought in a form because I heard a friend of mine's mom say that she moved into a condo complex on the highway in Kihei, and before she could move in, they had her sign a form that basically said, "I acknowledge that I'm being exposed to harsh chemicals, daily living here, and I can't sue if I get cancer," basically. So when I brought that up, they were just like, we don't know anything about that. I'm like, you really? So anyhow, I don't mean to get off on a tangent on there, but get
No, I think
involved.
it's a great point that you bring up, because that's one of the things that I wanted to get out of this conversation is things that we forget about. And giving testimony was one of those things that the county councils took for granted, because hardly anybody would give testimony, or they barely would give in. And I think it was a wave, when all of us ran for office, is to go in there and give good educated testimony and making the time. How could you how can we get to those people to take the time and write good testimony and just get inspired to go in there and do something? Because you definitely had some great points, and they were going they didn't know how to respond.
Well, as far as like local folks go, a lot of the people that I grew up around, they're kind of shy or they don't want to deal with it, and they feel like, oh, well, I don't vote, Rob, because it doesn't matter. And it does. You look at people like out in Honolulu area, like Napua, she could educate millions of people. She's amazing, and
Hmm.
the things that she knows and the education she could give you on Hawaiian history, the local stuff on Maui. Talk to former people that were in office. I mean, one of the people that I was very surprised about that was willing to spend hours talking to me was Alan Awakawa, the
Hmm.
two-term mayor. The things that guy told me off the record were mind-blowing. The corruption, things that you don't even know, so
Right.
you got to get involved. I mean, there was times where I would just have conversations with people I would see having coffee or at the farmer's market in Kihei or whatever. I would just have, hey, did you know this? Did you know? And the people, they have no idea.
Right.
Like nobody understood that Chief Pelletier, the new police chief that they hired,
Right.
this dude so he knew the job and he knew the pay and he knew Maui, the cost of living. He gets the job out of several local guys. He moves his family over here or over to Maui from Las Vegas. And within 4 months, he says, I can't deal with the cost of living here. I need a pay raise. So the police law enforcement bureau board, the 6 people that they have on that thing, they voted like in 5 hours to give the guy a $45,000 a year pay increase. Right. So his pay went from the 165, I think it was, that he accepted and moved his family over there and was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I'll do anything. And he comes over there and 4 months later, he gets a pay increase to $205,000. But what the people don't know is that dude's retired from Las Vegas Police Department and his pension is $260,000 a year. So that dude's the police chief of Maui making $500,000 a year. Now, I don't have a problem with that. It's fine. Don't hate the player, hate the game. But when you look at these politicians and the people that are getting these high paid positions, did Pelletier even try for 1 second to get his force a pay raise? The working
Hmm.
people that he's there to represent? That, I mean, as a police chief or a fire chief, if I were in that position, that would be my number one priority, is taking care of my people.
Hmm.
So I think people just need to be informed. Everybody's, and I think it might be partially by design.
I
It's
think you're
so
right. Yeah.
expensive to live in Hawaii now, and California as well, that people are busting their ass just to survive. They don't have time.
Yeah.
I know local families who the 2 generations live in the house and all of them are working except for, their tutu, the grandma who's watching all of the kids, and they all pay to just survive. And it's
Hmm.
crazy to me because, I moved to Florida, and like you were talking about a mutual friend of ours earlier, the cost of living here I just laugh. It's like, how much is that again? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. It's crazy. It's unfortunate and it's crazy. Like one of the things that I really noticed the other day, and it made me super mad for a second, was that Ian Tonga kid that just won American Idol.
Right.
Beautiful human being, amazing voice. You know, it was awesome to see the concert he had on Oahu and all the supporters that showed up. And then there's freaking Mayor Rick Blangiardi and Josh Green taking
Right.
selfies with him. And I was so disgusted because that kid doesn't live in Hawaii anymore.
Right.
His father
Right.
died. His family had to move because they can't afford to be there. And now these a-holes who basically are contributing to that kid not being able to stay in his home island.
Right.
Oh, we're so proud of him. Oh, are you really? Like, the one thing I learned running is the politicians and the people that have been there are so full of shit. It's unbelievable. And they have no remorse. They have no,
Nothing.
some of them honestly have no soul. Like what me and my group of guys went through during the COVID thing, and you're aware of the group, we would go around with no masks because I knew for a fact with the 28 years of both my careers that mask did nothing for you.
It even says it on the box, doesn't it?
Correct. It does. And then people, the N95. Right. Well, the N95 isn't for viruses either. The N95 is actually a dust mask. And 95 actually means 95% effective against dust. And to effectively wear one, you have to be fit tested annually. And that thing needs to make sure it fits. And it only protects you from dust, not a virus. So it was very telling for me also that when we went through what we went through, and I know a lot of people don't understand this, and this is the crazy part about politicians. So Mayor Victorino and the brand new police chief and the Chamber of Commerce got together and they created an undercover task force of 5 officers that followed us. They came to our homes in the early morning, like a raid, like we were drug dealers, to threaten us with arrest for basically spreading constitutional rights to people. And that's what made me run. I was like, this is insane. They threatened me. They like basically, and the scary part of it all was I knew I was in the right. And what I'm trying to get at is what people need to think about is moving forward is not just educate yourself, but don't be afraid. Know your rights. We have rights. There's nowhere in the Constitution that says that a mandate negates the constitutional rights. It doesn't end when there's an emergency, which COVID wasn't an emergency. And I'm telling you right now, people like Dr. Chang and other people I talked to multiple times, they knew that the masks didn't work, but they didn't have the bravery or the heart to step forward and tell people it didn't. They just did what they were told because they were afraid to lose their career. They were afraid to be blackballed. And that's got to stop, because if the people of Hawaii do not educate themselves and they don't have the wherewithal to stand up for themselves, this next time around, what's coming is going to be way worse. And I'll tell you, Tamara, to be honest with you, aside from family things that we needed to take care of, we after the election, the primary, and I saw what happened to BJ Penn, and I saw what happened to you and Cullen Bell and other people that I knew had integrity and heart and were for the people, and I saw the numbers that came out. And I campaigned all over the islands with BJ Penn, and I got to know him personally pretty well. And I mean, people can say whatever they want about the guy. We all have a past, but I'm telling you, I met his mother. That guy's heart was in the right place.
Yeah.
The thing I liked about BJ is you knew what you were getting and he wouldn't lie to you. And I went on all of these campaign trails and I talked to a lot of politicians and they lied right to my face. Josh Green lied right to my face multiple times. Mayor Blangiardi, liar. These people are criminals. And when the police chief and the mayor had a police force come to my house and threaten me, and my neighbors saw all the cop cars out front of my house for not wearing a mask at a store, I knew there was an issue. And I thought to myself, the island is still pretty small. And with the fake news and the bullshit and the people not actually thinking of things, it got kind of dicey because they can ruin a person's life. They could have arrested me in front of my house and put in the newspaper that I had 27 guns in my house and I was a right-wing conspiracy crazy person, and put it in the Maui News, and that's what I would have been. And even though I would have been exonerated off, because anybody who was arrested during that time, their case was thrown out because constitutional law always comes into play. So, that's the one thing I think that living in this state versus that state, I noticed the biggest difference was that I don't feel that kind of pressure. I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like, I can't speak my mind. I don't feel like, my constitutional rights, aren't being taken seriously, because here, I mean, literally on Maui, if you want to purchase a gun, which you can,
Right.
you go through an act of Congress to get
Yeah.
one.
Barry's going through that right now, as a
I
matter of
mean,
fact. Yeah.
it's insane. So you get a permit for a handgun, and it's literally like a week, and you got to go get the handgun, and then you bring it to the police department, and the police department takes all the stuff and they register it to your house, and then that permit's gone. And then if you want to buy another handgun, you have to go back in and apply every time you want to buy a handgun. Now, the long guns and the rifles, which is weird to me because they're far more dangerous, you get a permit and it lasts a year, and you can buy as many as you want in that year, but you have to bring them in within 10 days and register them. And in Hawaii, the one thing I will say is positive versus California is you can buy as much ammunition as you want.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to California, I shipped my truck to California when I left Maui, and then we drove across country. So I had a
Wow.
couple guns shipped to California. So I had a handgun and a long gun to drive across country with in my truck. And I was surprised because I went to the gun store in California and I tried to buy ammunition and they wouldn't let me. They wanted you to have a California driver's license. And I said, oh, okay, well, I don't anymore. I just moved back here from Hawaii. And he's like, yeah, you can't buy ammo. And I said, okay. So I called a
Wow.
friend of mine who's local. He comes down. He's got tons of guns. He got a license in California. He tried to buy it. They took his license and they wouldn't let him buy it because they went on the computer and they said, well, the guns that you have aren't this type of ammunition. They don't shoot this type of ammunition, and they're not registered to you to your driver's license address that's current on your driver's license. So basically in California now, they're tracking your ammo. And so to buy a box of ammunition, you have to not only own a weapon that's registered to you that shoots that type of ammo, it has to be registered to you to the address that's currently on your driver's license.
It's crazy.
So they're tracking your ammunition purchases. And then I moved to Florida, and I'm ex-military. I'm a retired veteran. I had a classified clearance my whole career. I had concealed weapons permits everywhere I went. So when I came here, I wanted to get one, and I said, hey, I want a concealed weapons permit. The guy's like, yeah, you just got to go down to this office. I went down there. I paid $75, and in 15 minutes, I had one. And then in Florida, if you have a concealed weapons permit, which, by the way, is going away July 1st,
Wow.
they changed it July 1st, constitutional carry, so everyone can carry without a permit.
Wow.
As long as you have a gun legally registered to you, because
Mm-hmm.
that went through a background check, right? But now with that permit, my concealed weapons permit, I can go into any gun store and I can buy a gun and walk out with it. I don't have to wait because they already did an extensive background check on me because I have a concealed weapons permit. So when you were asking the differences, I mean, that's one small difference, but that's I mean, you can have ammunition delivered to your house via online. You can't do that in California or Hawaii.
No, absolutely not.
And your Second Amendment rights not like the biggest issue. I didn't move to Florida because of that. I mean, there's millions of different reasons, but there's just so much. I know that I'm not going to ever be locked down again.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can't say that.
No.
I know that I don't have to register my garden. I know that I can have as much water as I want. Even though Maui, there's no water shortage. That's a big lie as well. The
Right.
Maui watershed creates way more water than you guys could ever use in a day. That's just being mismanaged and more bullshit that they're telling the people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant, but
No, it's okay because
there's
you're
just
kind
so
of
much
leading.
stuff.
You're leading up into before. But I really wanted you to give because a couple things that you had mentioned on your Instagram is there's going to be something coming that could be way worse,
Right.
and what are some things that people can do to prepare? Some people, I think that they're a little bit complacent, but still people got to get ready and be prepared for what is to come. And
Sure.
what's some advice that you could give people to get ready for what may come?
Okay. So, first of all, don't ever live in fear, but be
Mm-hmm.
prepared. Right.
You're right.
My thing is you got to look at world events and follow people that are actually following them. Andrew Dowd in Maui, he's phenomenal financially. There's things that people can't ignore that are truly happening. And it's not, I'm not going to say another pandemic, which that is going on, but you look at BRICS, you look at all these different countries. Saudi Arabia is no longer taking the American dollar for oil purchasing. You have all these countries that are now forming together to use the Chinese yuan, Russian-backed rubles from or gold-backed rubles from Russia. They're getting, nobody's using them, not nobody, but dozens of countries aren't using the American dollar anymore. It's done. So you can go on to these websites because people are like, oh, show me the proof. You can all during COVID, I made posts and I showed the pages from the CDC's website, NIH's website, you name it. And they would have the information right there because they know nobody reads this shit.
Right.
And it's mind boggling to me because you can go right on to the whitehouse.gov and they're telling you what they're doing. Their digital currency that they're planning on rolling that out in July, they said, so you have things going on behind the scenes and we're all being distracted with all this other bullshit that people just aren't paying attention. And again, we're trying to survive and take care of our families and we're working and taking the kids to practice. So the main thing that you got to do is if you have any kind of crucial, like if you're a diabetic and you need insulin, you need about 4 months worth of that stuff stored up in your refrigerator. You need to have a couple $1,000s worth of cash on hand in your house, because if the banks do fail, nothing's going to work. EBD cards, your debit cards, all this stuff's not going to work. And, you need to be prepared for that. When in the 90s, when I was in the Navy Special Warfare Command, we went to a class that was 6 weeks long and everybody made fun of it because they called it zombie apocalypse class. But that was just a funny name for it. It wasn't about zombie apocalypse. It was about basically massive civil unrest. And I still have the textbooks right over here. I read them all the time. And people need to be prepared for that. Listen, I was in California as a fire captain in Malibu during the big Woolsey fire and the other fires that were in Southern California. And I watched Malibu, California, one of the wealthiest parts of California, go from Malibu, California to a third world country in 3 days. Power was out for months. There was no internet. And in 3 days, people were shitting their pants because nobody, even these super wealthy people, they didn't have generators at their homes. They didn't have fuel to run the generators. They didn't have food. They ran out of clean water. So all I'm saying is the best thing you could do is live your life. Don't live in fear, but you got to have the medications that you need that you'll die without, not bullshit blood pressure meds or statins or any of that crap. But like insulin, that's a main one. Like if you're diabetic and you need it, you got to have that on hand. You got to have some cash. I would have a couple $1,000s in cash, small bills. Have enough water or a good water filter. Have a generator that you can keep your stuff cold, and have about 3 to 6 months worth of food. I can't stress that part enough, because if things happen, and I mean, in a simple sense, think about 2 weeks to slow the spread. In 3 days, when we shut down for 2 weeks, there was nothing on the shelves anywhere.
Right. Especially toilet paper.
Right. So think about this too. Think about, which is weird to me, but think about this. Hawaii, especially Maui, no longer produces anything. Okay.
Right.
If a supply chain shuts down in 3 to 5 days, Maui's going to be out of food and gasoline, period. And what do you think is going to happen? Now, in the early 90s, I've been in Africa with the military, and I saw horrific shit happen when there's no food. You think people are going to be nice like you see in the movies and help each other out? No. A man who has to take care of starving children becomes an animal. And I've seen it. And if you can't lock down in your house and stay there without going out into public for 3 to 4 months, you might not be doing so well. And that's the best thing you can do. I don't want to make anybody think I'm, fear mongering, but you can live your life, and you can live your life without fear if you have a plan. And you should plan, because I'm telling you, everybody knows in their heart that's paying attention, something ain't right.
Something ain't right.
It ain't right, man. And if you don't prepare, and you should also, if you don't have a gun, get one and have enough ammo, because if it gets as bad as some people are thinking, you might have to protect your stuff. I mean, that's just the
Yep.
way of life, and there are many, many countries, and people say, oh, that's not going to happen here. Really? Because there's a lot of things happening here right now that I didn't think 10 years ago would ever happen here.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
You're totally right on. And I hope that you continue to educate people on survival methods, because I just think it's great. And I enjoy listening to you too. It's not like you're hard to listen to,
Thanks.
Dennis, because you're straight to the point. You got a good sense of humor. And I hope that on your Instagram, or you do something more and to teach people survival skills and so forth. So if you are going to continue to do that, how can people find you so that they can watch
Sure.
and get some
So
advice?
the one Instagram I have is the Doc O'Shea 54. That's constantly blocked. They don't like the stuff I share on there. I have a new one called the Man Project, and that's one that I'm focusing less politics, more on my business, which I'm more on a longevity and health thing. But I also share a lot of tips on being prepared and doing the right thing, raising men, not girls, basically.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, that's another one. And then I have my email is the Doc O'Shea 41 at yahoo.com. And anybody ever has any questions or want to get in touch with me, they can email me there, and I'll always answer them. I have a bazillion pieces of information I can share. I'm really, it's not that hard to do. And people need to understand I'm coming from a place of absolute love. I want to help as many people as I can. And I just want people to live their lives and not have other people tell them what to do, and know that the Constitution is there, and it is your tool to use, and it will protect us as long as we educate ourselves and know about it. And, good will always prevail, Tamara. The
Yeah.
evil ain't gonna win, and that's what keeps me going. I'm raising kids that are about to raise kids, and some people say, I don't know if I want to have kids right now. No, please do. The world needs more dragon slayers. We don't need, people to stop having kids and teaching them right. And you look at very close friends of mine like Colin Bell. I mean, he's one of the best dads I've ever met, and he's killing it, and he's raising his boys and his daughter right. And we need more people to do that.
It would be fun is if you think about it, or if you want to, if you could send in like a 1 or 2 minute video of tip of the week, and we'll put it on here every week.
Sure.
And I'm sure that Scott would be more than happy to do it as well. I mean, the more information that we could get out to help people survive and educate them, the better.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure.
That
Absolutely.
would be awesome.
Yeah.
So give you a couple minutes for a final closing thought, and you're more than welcome to stay on, because our next guest is here, Jodi Beaty.
Okay.
She's running for treasurer for HRP.
Awesome.
But yeah, a little closing thought, and then we'll go on to our sponsor commercial.
Awesome. Yeah. Closing thoughts are love your family, spend as much time with your kids as you can. Don't be afraid. Live your life, but don't be afraid also to speak your mind. I just saw too much of that in Maui during the COVID thing. People that knew what was wrong and they didn't speak up. And that's a shame, because you only get one go, and you better make it a good one. Life's too short, and our country's too great to lose. We need people to stand up and fight for it, because it is an amazing place.
100%. Thank you so much, Dennis. And now we'd like to take this time to recognize our sponsor, and please check them out. Here we go. And we'll have a code for you after we come back.
Honey. It's one of the greatest gifts to man. With millions of wildflowers in every bottle, the nourishing power of honey is still yet to be fully discovered. Be Nourished Healing Products combines healing ingredients from around the planet to the purest honey from the island of Maui to bring magic to your taste buds. The best honey from the most beautiful place to nourish your body, mind, and soul. From our hearts to yours, be nourished.
Thank you so much. Be Nourished is such a great product. I really enjoy the honey. And don't forget, if you visit their website, to put in Liberty at checkout for a 22% discount. They're just great people, and we hope that you can support them as well. Again, put in Liberty and get a 22% discount. Now, our next guest is Jodi Beaty, and she is running. We had a runoff situation come from our state convention, and there's 3 candidates that are into a runoff, and one of them is the treasurer, the Hawaii Republican Party's treasurer race. And so we want to go ahead and bring on Jodi Beaty. Let's see. There she is. Okay, great. So it's wonderful to have you. I'm so glad that you can join us, and remind everybody about you and what your position, of course, that you're running for, and then tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I greatly appreciate that. I do
Absolutely.
have a shirt on. Sorry. Okay. Just want to make sure. Sorry about that, everyone. Well, my name is Jodi Beaty. I am running to be the state treasurer for the Hawaii Republican Party. A little bit about myself. I am born and raised here in Hawaii, in Kailua, Oahu. And I've been in the accounting field for over 30 plus years. In the last 10 years, I have switched over a little bit and become a teacher, which has brought me a lot of great insight to where our children are coming and developing from. So it's yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. So you have 30 years experience, correct, of accounting, and which is amazing, because that's what we need. Is we need somebody who knows what they're talking about, knows what they're doing, and knows what they're looking for when it comes to that. Now, I know that you've heard that there are some challenges within the party. What do you think is one of the first things that you would do if you were elected into that spot?
Well, the first thing definitely is to have a audit of the books. Now, I personally have done audits myself, but for something like this, I would definitely recommend to bring in an outside auditor, someone who has no ties to the party at all, just again, because of the background and history that has transpired within the Hawaii Republican Party.
So do you feel that somebody who is outside of the party, even though we do have some talented accountants within the party, do you think that's better, or maybe elaborate a little bit more on what you're saying?
Well, it's best practices in the accounting, which is an accounting term, to have someone who is not affiliated with the party to look at the books. It's just the checks and balances of running a good business. And I know that a lot of people feel that we're just a party, but we are a business. We have a lot of funds that need to be accounted for, and being able to have a true budget and to stick by it. And if we're not sticking by it, then why? Why aren't we? And being able to ask those tough questions and to be able to bring everybody transparency of where everything is.
Right. It's not only that, we also do have bylaws too that kind of come into play as well, where it does state in our state bylaws that the body is the one that has to approve a lot of the expenses and set the tone for the budget. So that's also, would that be your role as well, as to try and hold everybody accountable, including the leadership of the party?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is, again, what everybody keeps on forgetting is that the executive board is just part of the body, that it's not us to make the decisions. It's through the body to make these. So yes, it's coming aboard, being able to present a budget based off of the numbers that are available to us, but letting the board to be able to decide, yes, this is how we would like to allocate the funds. Or
No, yeah. Are you ready to take on that position? Because we know, as from the Campaign Spending Commission, the two positions that are held accountable is the state chair and the treasurer. So when people say that they're going to do this and they're going to do that, well, how will you manage that? Because ultimately it's you and the state chair who are held legally and financially responsible for the ongoings of the party.
and I am not going to put my name out there
Mhm.
and put my family or
Mhm.
my assets in any jeopardy.
Mhm.
And so I won't lie, I'm very surprised that we do not have IO insurance, which covers, boards like how we have. So that is something that I would definitely look into. It's not that expensive, but it's also to be able to hold everybody accountable. And if my
Mhm.
name is going to be associated with this, you better darn right sure that I am going to make sure that everything is held.
Right. And then people don't really understand that a treasurer within the Hawaii Republican Party, they have to deal with more than one account because there are CSC or Campaign Spending Commission guidelines and accounts. And then there's also FEC accounts. And I know that we have more than one account within the Hawaii Republican Party. Maybe you could, and are you familiar with those different accounts? And maybe you can elaborate on being able to manage those types of accounts.
Just based off of the financial statements that were given to us, which I don't classify as financial statements that were given to us at the state convention, I do see that there are 6. I have worked in multi-million-dollar corporations. I've dealt with multiple accounts even within just a regular single body corporation. But I'm also treasurer for several different other boards. And so I am very detail oriented and organized to be able to handle the funds accordingly. Now, as to the exact accounts that we have, I do not have access to that right now. So I can just see what is on a piece of paper. And I know that there's some controversy about that too. So until I can actually get in there and really dig down into our books, I really can't speak much about that right now.
Do you know if there is a 2-signature system? And if there isn't, is that something that you would insist upon?
Absolutely. That is, again, general practices that needs to be done. And so, no, I do not know.
You do not know. Can you explain to people why it is important to have a 2-signature system?
It's a checks and balances. If you have a single signature, I mean, I could write myself a check, and say it's, and that's not right. And so having a dual signature is a checks and balances to make sure that the funds are being allocated to where they need to be.
Okay. And what if you run into a situation, where maybe the chair or somebody within the state level executive team is like, we want to have this party, but the funds aren't there. How are you going to interject and work out that type of a conflict and bringing reality to the table with our finances?
If the money's not there, the money's not there. And it's not to carry over or borrow from one account to another. No, that's not how it's done. If they want to have a party and we don't have the funds, that's where the finance chair comes in and be able to fundraise and be able to bring in the money. And then at a later time, then maybe we can have their party.
Right. Do you believe that the treasurer and the finance chair need to have a good, close working relationship?
I believe so. I mean, it'll make jobs a lot easier. Now, do we have to be best buddies? No. Can we see things a little bit differently? I hope so. I hope that we all bring in our own little backgrounds and history. And, I think debates are phenomenal to be able to bring out different thoughts for the party. But yes, having the finance chair and the treasurer be able to work together, it'll make the job a lot easier. But it's, I've had other places where we've had not the best relationships. So
right. Well, you seem like you're easy enough to get along with. That's my impression of meeting you and so forth. What do you feel more that you can bring to the table as taking that role immediately? I know that one of the things that you talked about was an audit, and we know that now you had just mentioned that there's 6 accounts. So now we've got the audit. What's another thing that you're going to be able to bring to the table to help bring credibility and stability to the Hawaii Republican Party?
Again, just my background knowledge of accounting, being able to bring true balance sheets and financial statements to the board, and not it be just a one-time thing at convention. These things should be given at each of the meetings. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that something, being that I'm the Honolulu County Treasurer also right now, when I took on that position, I was asking for information, and granted, I love Brett Colbus to death. He's a great guy.
He's watching.
I know he is. I saw him. But he was a single man show, and so I was trying to get more information from the state treasurer, and it would be on a piecemeal kind of information, and then finding out that we are 1 month behind. And I can understand that, having different counties and stuff. But one of the biggest things that I would like to do as treasurer is bring all county treasurers together. Perfect. To be able to work together to develop a system that we are all comfortable with. Mm-hmm. So that we are all on the same page, be able to develop a handbook or, information that can be passed on to the next person, and not that we're digging and scraping to find out information. Mm-hmm. And so there's still some things even on our Honolulu side that I'm still trying to get information on. And unfortunately, I may not be able to. And that's what I don't like. And I don't want anybody else to have to feel that way.
Definitely a guidebook would be very helpful for the treasurers. I know the Campaign Spending Commission has a pretty thick book, and it's helpful, but still there's no specific guidebook for the treasurers within the party. That would be an amazing task to complete, and unification within the counties I know would be greatly appreciated. How do you feel about each county having their own bank account?
Again, I would need to really dig down deep into, again, with the checks and balances and with the campaign spending, I would just need to get more background and research on that. Mm-hmm. Right now, just of how it's being handled, I would still need to do more research on it.
Okay.
Because again, when you're dealing with the campaign spending, overall, the state treasurer is still going to be responsible for it. And if I don't have the access to, not necessarily not the access to it, but knowing exactly what is going on at one particular time is my only hesitation on that, until I can definitely sit down with the treasurers and say, okay, this is how we're doing it. This is how I'm going to be getting information, and be able to have that. Then we can definitely look into it.
Fair enough. It is a big job, and it's a huge responsibility. As I mentioned before, what people don't realize is there's the 2 primary people who are responsible for the checks and balances, which is the chair and the treasurer. So do you feel it's necessary for a treasurer to be involved for fundraising when you have such an important task that could cause us financial penalties, just like what we had this past year? We had a $60,000 penalty because the I's were not dotted and the T's weren't crossed. Mm-hmm. So do you feel that additional task of also fundraising should be part of a treasurer's responsibility?
In the next, not necessarily as the fundraiser chair or being able, but to be part of any fundraising committee, absolutely. To make sure that, one, all the forms are filled out correctly, that we have all the correct information from all the donors. But as to what fundraising we are doing, I'm going to leave that to the finance chair. There's enough for me to do on myself. But no, I'll definitely have, I don't want to say my hand in the pot, but basically, yeah, that I will still be involved with it, to find out how it's being handled and being run.
Oh, definitely, because there are required paperwork that needs to be submitted, and proper ID and from all of the donors, and where we collect it from to follow the CSC and the FEC guidelines, which is absolutely imperative. And you don't need to waste time chasing down that information. I think that's one of the things that could be included in the handbook that could be developed, because people forget about that. And another thing that I know people aren't educated about is that there's caps on how much people can donate to the party.
Yes.
And that's super important.
And that's why it's very important to know their employer too, because of little backdoor shenanigans that people try to do of having their employers give their employees money to donate. So
right,
that's why all
exactly.
of these things need to, and for a lot of the times, like, we are all volunteers,
Yeah.
And so people just say, yes, I want to get involved. I want to step up. I want to be part of this. But they don't realize what they're actually stepping into. So fortunately, because I have been a treasurer on several boards and an accountant, I have that background knowledge also to make sure that we do dot our I's and cross our T's.
Absolutely. It is a huge commitment. So why are you willing to subject yourself to such a huge responsibility?
Because our party needs it. I've been, I guess, that closet Republican, born and raised here. I come from a family of Democrats. One thing Mom always taught us is that we don't talk about religion and politics at the table. And I grew up with that. And it's just seeing how everything is being run. I'm tired of being that, in the closet anymore. And I'm speaking up now. And I am a strong believer. You need to put, if I'm going to speak up, I have to be a part of it too. I'm not just going to be that backdoor grumbler in the backside and not do anything about it.
I call them armchair quarterbacks.
There you go. And why treasurer? Because that's what I'm comfortable with. That's my field. And that's where I feel I could do the most benefit for the party, to make sure that we don't have these, sorry, but I'm going to say, these stupid fines and things that should have been, a red flag from the get-go, and why nobody caught it, because everybody's doing all this other stuff. That's why I said I'm going to be focusing on the treasurer. I'm going to make sure our books are correct, and that everybody knows where we are with it. I'm not going to put my hand into coalitions and to all of the recruitment, because that is not my kuleana. That's for those chairs to be able, or vice chairs to be able to take care of that. But if I can assist, I definitely will. But my focus is on making sure that everybody knows where we stand.
Right. I believe that that's where we kind of get lost, because people start to cross in and want to put their fingers in another pot, and they forget or they miss what the task is that they're responsible for. So I appreciate that. I mean, it's one, like, again, I emphasize to people, people don't understand the treasurer is such a huge responsibility, especially we're trying to rebuild credibility for the party, and we need our people and our donors to have faith that their money is going to go for good use, and that the money is going to be there, and we're not wasting members' money with fines. I mean, me personally, even though I'm within the party, I hesitate about giving $100 because I want my $100 to go to where I'm donating it, which is to the well-being of the party and the candidates, and to expand the party, not to go towards covering somebody else's mistakes by paying fines. And so it's my investment to the party to be bigger and better. So I really appreciate everything that you've said. What I want to know is, what is the biggest obstacle in your field that you've ever had that you overcame?
Basically, it's what you mentioned. If the chair or if the upper people want to do something and we don't have the funds, I have put my foot down, and and I've made enemies. I've probably got kicked off several boards just because if we don't have money, I'm not going to spend money. And that is just something that I'm true to. I mean, I'm not, and I hold, especially these type of boards, because I belong to, like Kalaheo school board too, where that's people's money that they want for that particular thing. They don't want it so that we can go on an extravaganza party, to wine and dine one or two, candidates. We are here for all the Republican candidates, and we need to be able to endorse them all and be able to support them all. And so so if anybody's out there, I'm letting you guys know, if we don't have money, don't even ask me.
Awesome. I appreciate your being forthcoming and honest, and it is important to share and educate people in and out of the party. So we are coming to an end. So I'd like you to take this opportunity to tell people not only how they can get a hold of you and ask you more questions if they need to, but why they should vote for you, why the delegates should vote for you, why the community should tell the delegates to vote for you over your opponent.
Well, thank you for that. Well, first of all, again, I say 30 years, but I've been actually doing this ever since I've been 10. I come from a family of accountants. So I've been doing it actually close to 40 years. But again, I just have the knowledge and the background of the accounting field to make sure of how to balance, audit, and budget money accordingly. Again, I've seen my opponent, and her whole campaign that she set out there for was that she can bring in the money. So I don't have an issue at all of, if she can bring in the money, then make her a finance chair, but having accounting background knowledge, I think, will help benefit this. So I ask everybody for their support for Jodi Beaty for treasurer, and they can reach me at, my email's the easiest. It's Jodi, Jodi, the letter B, HIGOP @gmail.com. And they can shoot me out anything. And I'm very transparent, not only in my skin color or not, but
right.
So yeah.
Jodi, thank you so much for coming on. You're welcome on any time. And I know it takes a lot out of the time, and thank you so much for being willing to step up and dedicate yourself to the betterment of improving the Hawaii Republican Party. I also want to thank everybody out there for joining us, and we hope you tune in every Thursday at 3 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time on the Liberty Arise media platform on Rumble, YouTube, Red Pill, and Facebook. Coming in one of our upcoming episodes, I'm really excited that Stephen Stern will be joining us. We look forward to hearing from Stephen Stern and the Precinct Committeeman Project. He has experiences and has been on with Steve Bannon and many visits to Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump. And his date, we'll announce it soon. So please check Facebook and Instagram on Redtime Stories for when he will be joining us. Please remember to reach out to me again at writeasred@pm.me for questions, content, or even video clips. Redtime Stories, again, is coming soon for children, and I'm looking forward to that, to teach tiny little stories to children where they can understand things about manners, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and the Pledge of Allegiance. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember, the truth has no fear.